Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by my channel, Cut Above Recipes. Today's episode, we're going to be taking some wild game meat and we're going to be making some buffalo strips. Here I'm opening up a few packages that I was hitting the dregs of my freezer. It's basically July and there's pretty much no more game meat left in my freezer. And unfortunately, this is when I decided to do the videotaping. So hopefully, I have enough to make a few different episodes for you. This is going to be the first installment of my wild game recipes. Um, Basically, on the left-hand side of your screen is Chukar legs and Chukar breast, and to the right is pheasant. Basically, what I'm going to do is you're going to see me pull off the tenders of both the Chukar and the pheasant. I'm going to make my strips about the same size that correlates to each tender. So the Chukar breast will be the same size as the tenders I'm pulling from that breast. As you can see there, that was the tender, and that is the regular breast. So the whole point of getting them the same size is not only bite size. I do this for an appetizer. Everybody knows buffalo chicken wings. This is no different. This is just how I do it. You can see little pieces of anything when you're cleaning wild game that you've harvested. You just want to make sure it's the best part of the meat. Anything that's bloody or there's pellets or something in there, you just want to make sure you get rid of it before you try and eat it. Now you see the different size. You see that tender is so much bigger than the Chukar. We're going to cut them and we're going to keep everything separate. Uh, as for the Chukar legs and thighs, I was going to include that in this video, but I am going to do a separate episode with that. I cut most of it out. You're going to see it here for a couple minutes in the beginning. Then I pretty much edited everything else out with the legs and thighs. And you're going to see a southern styled breaded, not breaded, but a southern style fried legs and thighs with that. Um, so it'll go away shortly, but pardon me for my novice editing. Don't abuse me too bad on this. I'm just trying to figure everything out, but I want to share this with you. Okay, so I'm trying to keep myself organized here. I'm getting ready to set it up for the breading method. This is basic traditional French style breading. You have it's dry, wet, dry. Uh, Basically, it is flour, an egg bath, and breadcrumbs. I use panko breadcrumbs. And for this, since I'm doing buffalo, the egg is actually having the seasoning. I use salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and a lot of, I believe it was Frank's Red Hot that I use. So I mix that in there with egg and a little bit of milk. Um, the trick to breading, a lot of people use gloves because their hands turn into Frankenstein hands with all the breading mixture. But if you notice, that really the trick to any breading anything is keeping one hand wet, one hand dry. So if you pick up the meat like I did here, I got all the pheasant in a bowl. I picked that up with my left hand, and with my right hand, I'm going to keep that as my dry side, and I'm just shaking everything out. Like make sure the pheasant breast was coated in flour, and that way I could pick it up, and the only thing I have on that hand is flour. The other side is wet, which would be my left hand, and you'll see in a second that that's what I'm going to be grabbing the pheasant strips out of the egg, and you just keep that process. Yeah, one hand is wet, but you don't get the clumps and you won't get the flour or the breadcrumbs to stick. So it's just a simple way. It's hard, but once you practice and you get that situation down, you'll be able to bread and keep your hands fairly clean so that um, all the bread or the flour actually sticks to the meat, not your fingers. So you want to be organized in such a way so that I did all the pheasant first, and you want to keep it together because they're all the same uniform size. So now when you actually go to fry, they're going to cook pretty much all the same at the same time. The chucker, since they're smaller, thinner, they're not going to take as long. And as you see here, which I'm going to correct in a second, which I wasn't really thinking this through, but I started putting all the tenders on top of each other. When you bread something, it's going to soak up the moisture. And what's going to happen if you kept that as a pile, it's not going to be able to dry and adhere to their proper tenderloin. They're just going to stick as a clump. So that's why I started to spread it out here. And it needs a little bit of time to, like, I guess the people who do a lot of smoking in wood grills and smokers for the meat, it gets a bark. But you want to basically do the same thing with breading. You want to give a little bit of time for that flour, egg, and breadcrumbs to uh, bind together. It doesn't take long, 5-10 minutes, 15-20 minutes at most. If you're worried, you don't have to be worried with the amount of time between frying. So here I just sped up the whole process so that you can see it. Again, the checker legs and thighs, that's going to be something different, and I'll incorporate that into another episode. Here, I just added a little bit of flour. I wanted to show you that if you can change things up and make it a little bit different, which actually helped when I fried the pheasant and the chucker, the taste comparison. The breading was actually a little bit thicker on the chucker than the pheasant tender strips. And I think the reason is just the flour added to the egg here. It just gave it more of a coating, more of a surface area for the breadcrumbs to adhere to. And again, I'm just trying to make it so that just the edges are touching so that the rest of it can do its thing and adhere to the meat properly. So I'm finishing up the last of the checker strips here, getting the last of the breading on. As you can see, the method of keeping one hand wet, one hand dry, you'll see here at the end, after all of the breading I just did. A couple little spots, but pretty clean overall. All right, getting ready to move on to my next step of frying all the breasts. We're going to move on to a split screen here so you can see both sides. Again, you want to fry all the similar sizes together. This is a cast iron Dutch oven pot that I have. It's probably about a quart of oil in there. The pot is about, I'm going to say, 4 inches deep, and the oil level is about half that, about 2 inches. So why I did that is to try and minimize spatter on my stove, because I don't like cleaning up grease when I'm done. So I find the higher sides actually helps contain a little bit of the oil spray. Yes, I still do have to clean up at the end, but that is the reason why I chose it. And I do love cooking with cast iron. Just helps produce a more even heat. I think I'm going to do a series on cast iron cooking as well. The things I've discovered over the years of um, how to use it, and different types of acid foods and just the reactions and such. So stay tuned. Look forward look for that in the future. Right here, I put all the pheasant strips in at once because that I had no fear of overcrowding the pan. My oil was at 350 degrees. I have a digital thermometer. You'll see that apparently in somewhere in the video. I'm not sure where, but it makes it. So when you put food in a fryer, you want to put them in its own little space. So you don't want to drop all, say you have 10 strips, you don't want to drop them in all at once. You want to drop them in one at a time in their own little spot in the oil. And then you want to let it sit for at least a minute before you move it, because you want the oil to actually sear everything together to make it, I guess the word would be encased, because if you move it too soon, it doesn't give enough time for that outer coating to actually set. And then you let the oil do its work. For those strips, they were probably, I don't know, just under 3/4 of an inch thick, the pheasant strips. And I think it was about uh, probably 5 minutes of cooking time. Again, you take a digital thermometer and stick it in the most center point of the piece, and you would want to have it at minimum of 165 degrees to make sure you're fully cooked. Um, that's the magic number, people, 165. And basically anything you cook. Um, for me, I don't follow, the only time I don't follow that rule, and I'm willing to take the chance, is on my hamburgers and steaks, because I am a 120-degree person, and if you know what that temperature is, that means it's rare. All right, at this point, I'm starting to fry the food, and then I realized, oh my goodness, I don't have a plate. I don't have a little bit of garnish, and I never uh, set up the blue cheese dressing or the hot sauce. So for my buffalo sauce, I use again, there is Frank's Red Hot, so I was right. I put that stuff on everything. Um, and then I add butter, and then I add some garlic. And then what I do is I'll take this pan and I'll put it on a heat, and I will just let the butter slowly melt. You don't want to bring the butter and the sauce to a boil. You kind of just want to melt the butter so that it emulsifies in with the sauce, because you can separate it, and it just, it won't change the flavor, but it just won't coat the strips as it should. It'll look oily and greasy if it actually separates. You can see the butter I put there, that's on low heat um, in the sauce. And so I pulled the pheasant strips out, and now the chucker strips, and these are even smaller. These are at max maybe a half inch in diameter in thickness. So this should take probably 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, now that the chucker's in, now it's time to take care of the sauce. And I could see that the butter was already started to melt, but I didn't want it to come to a boil. So you see how the butter combines in with the sauce and it turns it a pale color? That's actually what you want to see. That's a nice emulsified sauce. It's quick, it's easy. You don't have to boil it. You just need it to get to that color and consistency. So yeah, I took it off to the side, put it up to the back of the stove to keep warm, and back to frying. I do a lot of this by eye and by feel. Um, if you don't have a thermometer to get the oil, as you see, let me step back. When I pulled the pheasant strips out, I did not let the oil come back up to temperature, and I could see this immediately when I threw the um, chucker strips in. but that's not a bad thing. You can still see that the oil is actually frying. Um, and once the light goes off on the thermometer, you see it's like 311 or 314. Not a big deal. You don't want to do it if it was much lower than that. You want to be around the 325-degree minimum. But what it's going to do, it's a lower temperature, and you'll see at the end that the chucker strips are actually going to come out lighter. They will definitely be cooked, but they'll be a lighter color. The bread won't be as golden. All right, so as the chucker is approaching its last minute or so in the oil, I'm setting up a traditional, basically, plate for buffalo wings to be celery pieces. I just used the celery tops as garnish since it was there. And also, in that clear ramekin, I'm going to be putting a blue cheese dressing I used to make from the Yellow Brick Toad restaurant. I have a episode for that. If you want to see that, that'll be added to a link somewhere above in the screen. Also have it in the description box as well for you to find a link so you can check out that video how to make this blue cheese dressing. It really rocks. Yeah, there are exactly 2 item choices in here that make Toad blue cheese dressing unique. Please click on the link below to figure out what that is. All right, so we're going to be wrapping this episode up. Basically, what we have left is taking the chucker out of the oil. When it's done, let it drip for a minute or so. I'm going to be taking the hot sauce that I made, splitting it between 2 bowls, and then I'm going to toss the pheasant strips and the chucker in their own bowl. That way it just doesn't get mixed up and you can taste it. My basic overall feeling between the two, I actually like the chucker breading better. It was a little bit moister than the pheasant. The pheasant was very tasty as well. But if I had to eat it, if I had a choice, I would actually go for the chucker. It's just a little bit more of a tender morsel. And I think the addition of that flour actually did help to keep the moisture inside of the breast, inside of the meat fillet. So I'm just tossing it up. I'm going to plate it up. Everybody's seen this kind of traditional setup. Hopefully you see that it's not that difficult to make breaded pheasant strips or chucker strips. Click on the other link again for the blue cheese dressing. That is not difficult either, and you don't have to go out to the store anymore. And plus, you can turn your wild game into something traditional. Yeah, I would just like to say thank you for checking this video out. And if you made it to the very end, I really do appreciate you. I like that. If you don't mind, if you have it in you, please click like, subscribe. I want to try and do some more of this. Also, if you don't mind reaching out in the comment section below, telling me what you like, what you didn't like on that line, something you'd like to see for a future episode, that would be greatly appreciated. Like to hear from you, like to post back and forth and see where we can get this going. I really enjoyed doing this. It was fun. I like to share little bits of my knowledge and different things of how to do it, and let me know, because I'm not a master video editor by any means. If there's something that you think would be better, I'd like to hear it. Otherwise, other than that, again, please like and subscribe if you want to see more. If not, I appreciate you stopping by and at least checking out this episode. Everybody, you guys have a great day. Oh my goodness, I forgot to tell you. I just had some of this blue cheese sauce on the chucker. Can you see that? Freaking good. Delicious. Make it. You'll enjoy it. If you want the blue cheese dressing, it's something that I've used since I went to a restaurant in New Jersey. It's never let me down. Everybody loves it. You want to see it? Recipe's going to be
right up there somewhere. I don't know, but it'll be up there. Find it, make it. It's delicious.